On today's show, it is part 2 with myself and Glen Willis talking about Bogdan Bogdanovic, one of the more interesting players on the Hawks roster. And here we go.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1791 of Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Thursday evening into Friday. And this is part 2 of 2 with myself and Glen Willis talking about Bogdan Bogdanovic. Today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And now through September 22nd, all customers of FanDuel bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of the NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. The place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Go ahead and find us on Apple, on Spotify, on Overcast. We're also on YouTube. Please like this episode as you are watching it and tell your friends about the podcast. As I said before, this is part 2, so if you wanted to go back to part 1, I recommend that. This is a 2-parter going into the holiday weekend talking about Bogdan Bogdanovic. Hopefully you enjoyed part 1. Without any further delay, we'll dive in now with part 2 and more on Bogey. I want to use that as a pivot point to dig into kind of some of the slam stuff and some of the defensive stuff for Bogey too, because you're right that, I try not to say this too much. I don't want to be as framed as being negative about it. They don't have enough shooting. Part of that is that, they're hoping Ricochet gets there. He's going to be a rookie. I would urge people to not to put too much on the number. Even I know he's number 1 overall pick, but he's a rookie still. And Garrison, as you lay out, is the 10th or 11th man. And he's their only other plus established shooter other than Trey and Bogey. The counter, of course, is defensively, and this is always the balance of every team. A lot of secondary players, role players, are lean heavily to one side or the other, and that's why they're secondary players. That's why they're role players. You know what I mean? It'll be fascinating to me how they get enough shooting on the court while keeping their defense viable. And that's a very common NBA challenge, but it's one the Hawks are going to have, I think. Even with all I said before about Trey and Bogey working together, and it always has, you still need someone between them to play defense. You need someone like Dyson, someone like maybe it's Kobe, but somebody else on the perimeter, because if pick your team that has a high-level perimeter player, which most teams do, neither Trey nor Bogey is equipped to guard that guy as the primary assignment. So you need someone that can. And that guy is probably not going to be DeAndre Hunter anymore. It used to be DeAndre Hunter, and that guy, we talked about it with DeAndre on our capsule about him, but he's much more of a combo forward at this point who's not going to be defending point of attack the way he used to be. Ricochet is a rookie. You and I agree on Dyson wholeheartedly, and we'll get to him more in the future. But there are challenges there. And then there's the other side, which you lay out perfectly about the shooting. And yeah, Hunter can shoot. I mean, he's the guy. It's like, I'm not saying he can't be a high-level shooter. He can be. He's been a high-level shooter. But he isn't a 5-alarm fire the way that Gallo was.
And defenses don't react to Hunter as a shooter the way they do to Bogey or Bay or Gallo, right?
No, because you said
even
Bay's quick trigger.
Right. But defenses to this day don't react to Hunter as a shooter like he's nearly in the same tier of a shooter as his other guys. Now, Hunter can shoot the basketball.
He can.
Right. But Bay teams wanted to chase him off the 3-point line. Bogey, they want to chase him off the 3-point line. Hunter, it's like, okay, take your shot. And when teams want to chase Hunter off the line, it's because they know they can turn him over. There's a different thing they're trying to do there. Right? They're trying to put him on the move for that reason. And so it's completely different kind of way defenses react to Hunter as a shooter, even though he's a legitimate shooter.
Yeah, and part of that's volume. And, that's one of the reasons I want to make sure I laid out Bogey's volume, is that it's not just about the percentage you shoot. That matters a lot, obviously. But this is going back to a guy that you and I like, but one of the knocks on Collins back in the day was that he wasn't a high volume guy. Like, he shot high 30s, but he didn't get the 5-alarm fire either. And that matters. So all that said, we should always talk about Bogey's defense, like, individually. This is a Bogey capsule. I'm skeptical of a number like, even though I like EPM, they rated him pretty well defensively last year. My eyebrows raise on that. Again, I think it's probably because of the team success. We're better with him on the court. But I'll open it up to you. What is Bogdan Bogdanovic, the defender in 2024? Because going back to the specialist thing we talked about earlier, like, I think this is my opinion. I'll let you respond. Early in his career, I thought he was pretty clearly underrated as a defender because he had the reputation of the white European shooter. I'm not sure how to say it in a different way. You know what I mean when I say that, of like soft defender, all those things. Where he's never been soft ever. Like he's really tough in general.
Very
but also, it's also fair to say, as we've watched him for the last 4 years, I think, and you mentioned earlier, his athleticism in particular has declined. And that's what happens when you get to be 32, as he just turned 32 in August. He's in the same athlete. He's never been a great NBA athlete anyway. And when you lose another half step after that, it shows up defensively first. So long preamble, but I guess one way to say it is like, how bad is Bogey? But what do you think of Bogey as a defender, generally speaking, now?
Yeah. So the one thing he has that helps him, he has good size, right? For his position.
Long arms too. Long
arms. And so when he closes out on a shooter, right, the footwork's not always been the best, but the Hawks defense in the last 2 years, whatever you want to say, has lived in a state of scrambling. And your lesser athletes are always going to not do as well kind of in scramble mode, right? When I think about Bogey, I think about, the Hawks fans can probably visually recall a number of different areas last year that were persistently problematic for him. One was he's constantly taking fouls in transition, or taking fouls as low man trying to deal with a big man diving to the rim, right? Because smartly, like, I'm going to put him on the free throw line. I'm not going to give him the and foul him after he dunks the basketball.
Bogey just can't stop Euro fouling, is what it comes down to.
Like, and in fact, if you watch coverage of a EuroLeague game, they call it a professional foul. So it's what it's called, referred to as.
Right.
Yeah, which Bogey probably loves that, kind of, way of talking about it. But it felt like the whole season Bogey was taking fouls in transition, taking fouls as low man, helping on the diver at the rim. So you think to yourself, how do you address that, right? First of all, I want to ask myself, was it as bad as I remember? It's probably pretty bad. I don't know if I've made it worse in my head thinking back. But here's the thing: when Bogey is low man, first of all, if you can keep him out of low man, you want to do that. So low man is pick and roll on the offensive right part of the floor, the weak side defense on the baseline side, the guy who's on the weak side shooter, right? Typically in the corner. That's low man, has responsibility helping at the rim when either the ball handler gets there or the diving big gets there. So here's the thing. If one way you help with that, if Bogey's low man, if you have Trey at the weak side 3-point break, Bogey comes into the paint to help his low man. Trey's got to zone up. It's called zoning up two shooters. He has to account for both the shooter at the weak side, at the 3-point break, and Trey doesn't have enough size to impact both of those shooters. He just does not, right? Similarly, if the ball is making its way towards the nail, Trey getting all the way to the nail and impacting that, and he did a much better job of it last year, but Trey just doesn't have the size to move from the 3-point break to the nail and back to his guy at the 3-point break. So you replace that with Dyson. Dyson is incredibly efficient, moving from the weak side 3-point break to the nail and back, and then to the corner and wherever he needs to be. You throw into the next Veet was awesome at that last year. Hunter, if he's not defending on the ball, Hunter is awesome at that. So now you've got 3 guys. Kobe, we'll see if he can do it at nearly that level too, as he gets consistent minutes, presumably. Now you have 4 guys who can zone the weak side as one individual player. Doesn't have to be Trey, doesn't be Bogey, like, oh dear Lord, Trey's over here accounting for the nail and the shooter at the 3-point break and the shooter in the weak side corner. And so just having longer, Quinn talked all last year, we don't have enough size, we don't have enough size. That's one of the areas when you're zoning the weak side and you're 6'1", and you're an average athlete, or you're Garrison Matthews, who's 6'3" or whatever, and average athlete, at best, you're dead. Those guys cannot cover that much defensive space and cover all of that, right? You can't X out because you can't even get your first closeout there on time because you just don't have the size and the foot speed. And so for me, the way that you start to mitigate some of Bogey's shortcomings is to get guys positioned defensively where their length, their size, their athleticism, their skill can reduce the amount of responsibility, reduce the amount of exposure for a Bogey, for a Trey, guys like that, for even a Garrison Matthews. And so this team is built. Ricochet will eventually, I think, be good at that too, where he's zone on the weak side, counting for both shooters on the weak side, getting to the nail, getting to the rim, all that sort of stuff. So now you're starting to be more like, Keaton Wallace is awesome at that stuff. He's on a 2A contract. How much is he going to play? I think he's going to play a lot for a guy in a 2A personally, depending upon how Kobe's health is and all that sort of stuff. So now all of this, it's 6 guys that can function over there and simplify what you asked Bogey to do, simplify what you asked Trey to do. That is a total game changer for the frequency at which last year Bogey was exposed to his limitations because he was playing with Wesley Matthews at the 4, Garrison Matthews at the 3. Kobe Buff could play time at the 3 at the end of the last year. I mean, it's just kind of crazy to think about that. And so for me, I'm interested to see the way Quinn constructs his lineup, considering for defense the way to get a maximum size out there, maximum impact, maximum skill. And I will say, I know Hawks fans are like, please get Hunter off this basketball team. I see it on Twitter every single day. Hunter is awesome at that stuff. If you don't have Hunter defending the basketball, you have him on the weak side. He is really, really, really good at that. But doesn't mean he doesn't have other issues as an offensive player. But he is awesome at that stuff, right? Bogey plus Hunter on the weak side of the floor, Bogey plus Dyson on the weak side of the floor, on and on and on. Much, much, much better to limit the exposure that Bogey's defensive shortcomings kind of come out. They were unmanageable last year for a lot of the season. Should not be at that level this next season.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You've heard me talk about them a lot in the past, and FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Well, this time around, something a little bit different for you from the folks at FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game with YouTube TV. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. When you get to FanDuel also, you'll know that FanDuel Sportsbook's app is so easy to use. They have all started looking for across the sports betting space, from over-unders to point spreads to money lines, live betting, player props, future bets, and so much more. The FanDuel app is safe. It's secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well. The NBA, of course, is front and center at FanDuel. WNBA, NFL is on the horizon. College football is already ongoing. MLB, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. And now is an awesome time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook, and the place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. One more time, just visit FanDuel.com and check out America's #1 sportsbook and this new promotion they have now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers betting $5 get a 3-week free trial of the NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Check it out now at FanDuel.com. I feel like still Bogey will do what he's asked to do and execute it, generally speaking. Now, there are moments where he'll overhelp, which is probably the tendency you want, in my opinion. I think it's better to overhelp than underhelp. That's just my general thought. You might disagree with me about that, Glenn. You're smarter about the stuff than I am. But I think Bogey's an overhelper on occasion. You'll see that. But I do think he could be trusted to execute. And I do think that, him and Trey together it is what it is. But they do have a stark. They have a lot fewer players who I actively worry about defensively in their projected rotation this year, and that generally helps. That's the simplified version of what you just said in some ways, because that's you're smarter than I am about this stuff. But I think about it that way too, in a straight ahead way. You're scheming to hide certain players. You're scheming around guys' deficiencies. You're closing games in certain ways. I do think, and we can maybe come back as we want to, but I think Bogey is very clearly going to close, if not every game, the vast majority of games. Where, in the DeJounte era, he didn't always close because you didn't want to close with Trey, DJ, and Bogey a lot for obvious reasons. You're smaller, etc. Now it's I'm pretty sure Bogey's going to close most games. I'd be surprised if he didn't. So you think about that.
At least when you're playing from behind and or close game, going offense, defense, those sorts of things.
Yeah, certainly he'll get pulled defensive as he should. Yeah. And that's there'll be times when
coaches have their philosophies. Some coaches when they're playing with a 6 to 8 point lead down the stretch, other coaches want to just lean way more on the offense more. And so it'd be interesting to see.
Well, Nate always would do. Nate was big in the offense only when it came to like when they were down. Nate went offense only. That's the one time he ever did that is when they were losing late in games. He was like big into that. Whereas you're right, some coach and Quinn did a little bit of everything last year. I don't have the greatest feel about how he does that. You know what I mean? I know it's only been like a season and a quarter basically, but I don't know what he thinks. Part of that was the personnel. Honestly, the personnel limitations last year kind of took away some of those options anyway. But
he would go small. He would go small.
That's probably you probably know it's more that probably the overall tendency of the league is to get smaller in crunch time. For whatever reason, maybe it's just to match the other teams. Like whoever's losing goes small, and the other team that's winning goes small to combat the team going small. It's kind of a give and take too. But I bring that up because Bogey as a one-on-one defender and one-on-one defender. It's going to sound crazy to some people. On-ball defense is not the most important thing. It's not even near the most important thing for me anyway. But Bogey in certain matchups is okay. If you put him in a spot where he's defending someone that's not the fastest, like I'm sure you probably think about this stuff more than I do even. There have been times when they've thrown Bogey at like a guy that you wouldn't think they would throw Bogey at, like a star level player, and he's done well.
Shea.
I knew you were going to say that. That's what I was thinking of. I knew you were going to say that, but Shea's a good example. But other guys too. Like if it's not a guy who's going to blow by you speed wise, Bogey can hold up. Now, do you want him to do that all the time? Probably not. But like he's not useless. And I think there is a how do I say this? There's a dividing line between like the guys who are truly awful defenders or truly, especially wings, who are like, man, that guy's brutal. And for me, Bogey's not in that tier. He's above that. Now, on the wrong night, he might look awful. But I'm trying to give people an idea of like how actively shaky he can be. And I think that the lineup thing is part of what we're doing this for, because it's going to be a lot of Trey and Bogey, and then you throw in the third guy, fourth guy, fifth guy. But you both need shooting and defense, and the shooting is obviously there with him. It's just that you don't have to hide him as much individually as some other guys. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. And part of it's just he's smart. Part of being a veteran is you know what you can do and you know what you can't do. And that's where some of the fouling showed up last year. It was like, I know I can't do this, right? And that's part of being a veteran. And he lives that out, kind of in the way that he plays. But it's for me, you talked about him being overactive. Like we all remember the Nets game when he came way in from the corner. All the way, I put that play on Twitter after, and I gave my commentary, and like within 10 minutes we put in that tweet out. I heard from 3 or 4 former assistant coaches, and they were like, no, Hunter let the ball get middle, and that's what broke everything down. Now Bogey did bad, but it's containing the ball in the dying middle, and so again, that's for me. It's like, let's use this point of attack defense we have, get Hunter off away from the point of attack. That helps you. And so for me, I just think I know Hawks fans are still like the top 7, top 8 are still not good enough to be a top 4 or 5 team in the conference. And I think fans who think that are right. This team have to have 3, 4, 5 players in their top 8, 9 play over their heads to have any shot of getting towards like say 5th, 6th in the conference, right? 6 might be more reasonable, just depending upon how things shake out, right? And Hawks fans are still like, we need the top 7, 8 to be better. We need more upside there. A lot of that is, can Jalen take a step? A lot of that is, can Onyeka take a step, et cetera, et cetera. But what they have built, and I feel like we're talking about this on every capsule now, what they built 8 through 15 is 3 times as good as what they had last year, at least 3 times as good as what they had last year. That's going to help Trey. That's going to help Bogey. That's going to help when there are injuries. That's going to give Quinn options if he wants to play shooting versus defensive capability, all that sort of stuff. And so for me, I think Bogey is going to be set up to be a more constructive defensive player, I think the word I would use, a more stable defensive player, because you're not asking him to do things. You're not in scramble mode all the time. You're not asking him to do things he's like literally not skilled to do, not capable of doing, not athletic enough to do. And that is the way organizations should build rosters. That is the way coaches should build lineups and rotations. And so I think we're going to see, Bogey be a more functional and stable defender than he was last year because of the roster construction.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me, and I think that'll apply to a lot of guys. I think I'm going to save this relatively bold take. I'm starting to get somewhat confident that the Hawks are going to be, let's say, notably improved defensively. Now that's a pretty low bar from where they were a year ago, to be fair. But like I've done some bold prediction stuff when I've been asked to and different things, and I'm workshopping the Hawks will not be a bottom 10 defense take. That may not seem like much. But if they're not a bottom 10 defense, Glenn, they're going to be pretty good. That's all I'll say. Yes. If the Hawks are not a bottom 10 defense, that's a good team.
And the Glenn Brad take that has to go there is, so you want the Hawks to be a good defense. How do you feel about Clint Capella?
I think, it's always funny the counter to that is, hey, I say that in part because they have Clint and they have DeAndre Hunter still on the team. Now, mostly Clint, but Hunter does help on defense for the most part as well.
Now, I mean, Hawks fans who say Capella plus a non-shooter, they're right. They're right. Validate that. You're right. Yeah. Right. That is a challenge, and it's something they haven't solved for, even in this iteration of the roster they're taking into this season. So I don't push back on that at all. But Clint, if you want the team to be a good defense, it's funny to me. Hawks fans, I'm way oversimplifying. Hawks fans, I love all the conversations we have on. I love 97% of the conversations we have on Twitter, but Hawks suck on defense. Trade Clint, trade Hunter. Like those things do not.
It is a funny confluence.
For me, I just think that stuff just doesn't make sense. I understand the focus on offense and all that sort of stuff. Again, I validate the feedback around the offensive side of it and everything, but we'll see. I mean, to me, like how much you lean on Hunter's capability as a team defender, how much you lean on Hunter's capability as a help defender. What does Veit give them consistently, right? What does Dyson really give them in a scaled up? Like those are things that will provide some more flexibility on how Hunter is used this year, right? And they didn't have that at all last year. And so it's going to be interesting to see the way Quinn kind of reshapes rotations, lineups, and construction and things like that, because Capella plus Hunter on offense, there's an issue. There's a challenge there for sure. Hawks fans are right to point that out.
Yeah, I agree. It's been clunky the whole way. Zooming back out to wrap up Bogey. How do I say this? Bogey was awesome last year, and I started with that on purpose on this show. I do think that if I was projecting, I would project Bogey to play fewer games. Just law of averages. 79
Tyler and Kevin screaming at you right now.
Yeah, no, I didn't say minutes. I said games.
I know.
No, I heard that conversation. You guys, it was a funny one. I laughed about that. I think he might play more minutes per game. I think he probably will play more minutes per game.
Yeah.
He ended up around 30 last year. And look, a lot of this is training staff. A lot of this is that. And, that's one of those things we just don't know, especially now. But even once the season's going, it's not exactly likely that I'm going to get a straight answer from the training staff or coaching staff about how much they're going to try to play Bogey and not. It is what it is.
Clint's not going to give you an answer from the heart.
He does not like to say anything. But so all I'll say is I think he will probably end up playing fewer minutes total than last year.
Agreed.
Only because of how healthy he was. And look, maybe he's healthy again. I hope he is. Yeah. I will acknowledge that we don't know, but I can't wait to see if he starts. Not because I care, but because of what it's going to say about everything else. I've been consistent about that the last few weeks. Like, I don't have convictions about what's going to happen with the starting lineup, other than Trey and Jalen. We will see. That extends to Clinton Onyeka. I don't know what's going to happen there either. Maybe we'll look up on October 23rd. They start Larry Nance. I don't know what's going to happen, Glenn, but I expect Bogey to be very good. I expect Bogey to be very indispensable. I think Tyler got some heat the other day on my podcast for saying that Bogey is their second best player still, because people were really mad that Jalen was not ahead of him on that list. I get it. It's very possible Jalen's better than Bogey this coming season. I would like to have Jalen moving forward.
Yep.
Jalen last year was not better than Bogey.
He was not.
So
Bogey's our second best player right now. Right?
On August, whatever day this is, we're recording this. I tend to agree with you. Again, Jalen's ceiling, we all understand Jalen's ceiling way higher, all those things. And man, it'd be great for the Hawks if Jalen was better than Bogey this year.
And here's the thing we all have to remember. Last year was the first season in NBA Jalen had a starter role.
Yeah.
Right.
Huge jump.
That was a massive scaling up of minutes.
And he handled it very well.
He handled it very well. I said this before, one of my favorite things on Twitter to do during the Hawks game was to look at what the visiting team's beat writers were saying about Jalen's.
Like, whoa.
Presumably saying it for the like that dude is good, and it's just his ability to play in the. So there's a lot there, and I have no doubt Jalen's working really hard. This is, to my memory, the first fully healthy summer Jalen's had too. He had
people have forgotten that, but you're right. He's had a couple of things. By the way, since we're talking about Bogey, again, knock on wood, Bogey making it through the summer, playing a lot of basketball and being healthy as camp arrives, it's not a small thing, because even when Bogey's had a couple of those like cleanup surgeries in the offseason, well, like he's finished the season dragging his leg. I know you and I could probably vision that in playoff series where Bogey was like clearly not healthy and they had to do the little, the Arthur Scott, whatever they had to do in the offseason, he was coming into camp a little bit hampered. Obviously, he played a lot this summer, but he, by all accounts, is healthy, which is a big thing for a guy that you are going to need big time.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm excited about Jalen's second year. It's like and I'm sorry to keep taking this back, but
no, it's fine. Until
you go through your first season and start, you don't know what it takes to manage your body, to keep yourself ready, to be ready for different matchups, different teams, what different teams are going to throw at you. Jalen has now gone through that experience for the first time and all the feedback loops that come with that. So I'm excited about what Jalen is going to bring to the Hawks this year. I think it's going to be great. He was not their second best player last year. Is he the second player to be most excited about? Yes. For me, sign me up. That is me for sure. Super excited about him. Yeah. But that's there. The other part of Bogey potentially being able to play, 4 games in 7 nights, not play one, is their depth. And I talked about it before, right? Their depth, they didn't have anything. They had literally nothing. They had no options last year, right? They tried Seth Lundy for a little while, and he got hurt, right? The players they were trying to play in their rotation in the middle of December last year to try to find some size. You think about, and then you look at the roster now, they're not going to be back in that position. So should they feel they need to or want to, give Bogey 5 games off strategically across the season, play him in 72 games, whatever number you want to take, right? Yeah. They have that flexibility. Now you get out to a 2-6 start or something like that, it makes it harder to do that.
That's not, and it worked out for them, but that's what happened last year. I will always wonder if they would have maybe not rested him a ton, but like taking it a little bit more easy. There were some back-to-backs last year. I'm like, man, it'd be a good night to rest Bogey, and they just couldn't do it because they
played 39 minutes, right?
Right. So and look, it's worked. Whatever they've done the last year, and it's not always. I mean, it is science, but it's not always as cut and dry as you're handling him right versus handling him. Like, guys get hurt. It is what it is. He's had a knee issue for a long time, but they've done a good job with it recently. It's worked. Last year's plan worked. New training staff. We'll see, but to bring it full circle, I know what they're getting on Bogey as a player. He's really good. He's really valuable. He's indispensable. Trey is number 1 on that list. They can't replace Trey. Everyone knows that. There's no one behind Trey. It's as good as Jalen is on the same front. And look, they can't replace Jalen either. There's no one like Jalen on the roster either. So it's not like this. It's different things. But I think they'd be probably a little bit easier to plug and play around missing Jalen than they would be around Bogey right now.
Yeah, when Kuz injured, Jalen, it was brutal.
We talked about with Tyler. Actually, I went and looked it up. I think they lost like 8 of the next 9 games. It was like the season was over as soon as Jalen hurt.
He's in the 99th percentile in running the open floor, in transition, switching ends. And you started seeing little flashes of chase down blocks and, just stuff that his athleticism, size. He's in the 99th percentile. His combination of size, athleticism, he's in the 99th percentile. For him to now presumably have more skill to apply to that raw tool set that he has, those raw abilities that he has. It's going to be phenomenal. And I think we will be saying in very short order that this season, Hawks can't replace him, right? And that should be, and hopefully will be, a very exciting part of the season. But for Bogey, my short way of saying it, Bogey is awesome. The Hawks are lucky to have him. He makes things easier for everybody on offense, and there just aren't many guys like him in the league. And that helps them entering this season he's a rock, right? I know Quinn used that word a lot with Sadiq last year, and that was about effort and selflessness, I think, with Sadiq. But Bogey is just so reliable at what he does that it takes pressure off of everyone else. And the Hawks are very, very, he's awesome, and the Hawks are very fortunate to have him.
We are in total lockstep there. Bogey might have had his career best season on a per minute basis in 2021 when he just shot the ball the way that no one's ever shot it other than Steph. Like I've said this before, but I covered that team very closely. He shot 50% from three for 3 months on big volume. And like you can't fake that.
Gallo made his job way easier that year.
It was unbelievable. So I say that to say that might have been it, but if not, but his best full season was last year at age 31. Career highs across the board, other than 3-point percentage, and even then it was huge volume. So if you just look, you can't. If you could smash the button to say just replicate last year, the Hawks would be overjoyed by that on Bogey alone. Hopefully that happens. They don't need more from him. As funny as that sounds, when they lose DeJounte, they don't need more from Bogey. They need Bogey to do what he did last year, and everybody else around him to help out mostly. So. We're in agreement. This is very high. I'm sure people that don't know the Hawks are going to be like, God, these guys are just in love with Bogey. No, you said it before to damp it down. We're not saying Bogey's an all-star. He's not. He's really good. He's really, really good. And if he's your sixth man, and he might be, look, something within me is like, hey, Hawks, don't start Bogey all year long like last year, and let's get Bogey a Sixth Man of the Year award. There's something deep down in my soul that's like, I like Bogey to get a national NBA award. I don't know if he wants it. He probably wouldn't want it knowing him, but like if you said he's not starting this year, I think he'd win it. I really do. Yeah. If he stayed healthy, I think he'd win it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I can't get invested in awards anymore. But
no, I know it's not.
I'm gonna take 45 seconds to kind of might be surprising, defend people who vote on awards. People are like, oh my gosh, the people who vote on awards, they're dumb. They don't pay attention.
Most of them are not.
They don't. Here's what they are, Brad, and you. I know you can vouch for this. They're busy. They're busy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Their job is insanely just on task, on time, on deadline, on this travel, right? And so I will defend voters because it is impossible for them to watch all the basketball you would preferably want a voter to watch to actually be a fully informed voter. They're not dumb. Do they understand basketball, the X's and O's level, all of it? No, they're all over the place, just like any population that, right. Any sampling. They're busy, and that's why the voting is so weird.
Yeah, no, we agree on that. Last thing, maybe a plea to the NBA, who I don't know if they'll like this. I'm not saying I don't want to vote. I'm good, but it's also who is voting, and that's not an individual thing. It's like people's jobs. They should change the voting body, because to your point, you got beat writers who can't possibly follow the other 29 teams voting on awards when they see guys play twice, and they
have to maintain equity with the PR department.
That's what I'm saying. So like it should no one, and they did change it to we'll save the long spiel, but I generally agree with you. There are some votes where I'm like, it's hard to defend. Yeah. It's hard to defend some of the stuff that I see every year.
But that's more of an exception. That's not the rule.
Yeah, I agree. I would say the majority of the voting body, even if you can nitpick it, is not doing crazy things with their votes. They are busy, to your point. It's the outliers that get magnified. All right, we'll stop on awards talk here at minute 55 of this podcast. Glenn, thank you as always for being here. That's our bogey capsule for 2024. A couple more still remaining. In the meantime, where can folks find all of your fantastic work, including, as people have not seen this, you're often going sicko mode on Twitter, which we talked about last time you were here, but just breaking down Dom Barlow on what day of the week was that? It was like a Tuesday morning or something, just like a full Barlow
Sunday
spree.
It definitely was not a Tuesday morning because
whatever it was. Oh, it's probably a weekend because you're busy during the week, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So yeah, 18 on 29. Find us there. I'll be making a few other podcast appearances the next few weeks as kind of we ramp up towards the season. I'll be promoting those there. And as we always do, man, I'm loving the work that Wes and the team are doing covering the Dream NBA season. Is kind of down the stretch, and so that's awesome. And then, at Willis_Glenn, but, Kevin and Tyler, and I, have the last one we recorded was pretty lively, and that is kind of.
It was
Tyler's
a fun
role.
listen. I very much enjoyed it listening to it. That's what I was.
And that's Tyler's role is to help these two old white guys have a little bit of entertainment value and a little bit of juice and stuff like that. So and he does it well. He does it on your podcast very well too.
He sure does.
And so, but yeah, as we start to kind of do a little more kind of roster analysis and who's going to start, who's not going to start, what do we expect of the team, what all that sort of stuff. So. We should be cranking another episode over there pretty soon. So, just follow me on Twitter. And I love thoughtful conversations about the Hawks. If we can keep it within those guardrails, at least mostly, then happy to engage.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I have, media days around the corner. I've only seen your co-host, Kevin, one time since the draft. I saw Kevin this is just a local shout out, on North Druid Hills Road in my car to car. He pulled up the next. I was like, "That's Kevin." We yelled at each other out the window. But I miss Kevin. I mean, I used to see Kevin like 4 times a week, and then I go like 3 months without seeing him at all. And we're almost back to seeing him.
You and I know, but like the amount of work he produces on a game night is crazy. And so
Kevin, people occasionally people will come say hello to us, which we definitely appreciate. Always do that.
He's heads down.
And I have to like tap Kevin and be like, hey, at least wave at these people behind us because he's doing 10 things. People think I'm busy. He's busier on games than I am for sure.
Yeah. So hopefully he's getting a break. So
I would agree.
You won't take one, but hopefully he will. So
no breaks. I just found out, and we'll sign off. I just found out I'm probably going to be going overseas next October, and I'm already breaking out in hives about how I'm going to cover the team on a 10-day overseas trip for my job, like my day job. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm worried about it. It's 13 and a half months away. Don't know why I'm worried about it now, but I am. Anyway, as for everybody else.
AI, Brad. AI.
Maybe by then. Listen to 18 on 29. Subscribe to that podcast. Follow Glenn on Twitter. If you're not already, you definitely should. If you're a Hawks fan, Glenn is a must follow if you're on Twitter. Listen to this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, on Spotify, on YouTube, etc. Stay tuned. I don't know when the next show is going to be because I'm not sure when I'm posting this one, but we'll have content. I've got 3 or 4 episodes every week, all summer long, somehow. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends. We'll see you all next time.